Anthony, Jhanilka, super excited to have you here. I feel like I have been watching y'all ascend to greatness, and I'm so excited to finally have you here on the show because you guys are doing what I think from an external viewpoint, people would be like, why the hell would you start a cleaning business? But it's so much more than what folks think from the outside looking in. And so I'm just super excited to have you here to talk about one of the many different ways that like y'all can create side hustles online. When we're thinking about entrepreneurship, I think a lot of people just get caught up in the weeds. They get caught up in the old school type of businesses that many of us saw growing up. And I think now with the power of the internet, there's like so many different ways to make money. And I'm super excited to dive into that with y'all tonight. So, off with an introduction. I will let you decide who's going to do it on behalf of y'all, but tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Ladies first.
Ladies
Okay.
first.
So my name is Jhanilka. We're both born and raised from Brooklyn, New York. Been living in Dallas, Texas now for going on 7 years, 6.5 years now. Originally, my family is from Panama. Me and my cousins are first generation Americans. So a little different upbringing from him, even though we lived in the same exact building and our mothers actually still live in the same building in Brooklyn. So that's how we met. We've known each other for over 20 years. I am a mental health therapist, so I am licensed in New York and in Texas, and I currently still do work at my 9 to 5. And we paid off $114,000 of debt in 23 months by side hustling and raising our income. During that time, we started a cleaning business down here in Dallas, Texas, and that's a little bit about me and who we are.
My name is Anthony Hartzog, and I was a former IT director in my previous life, as we would say. I just left my 9 to 5 about a year ago, so just celebrating the 1 year resignation. I call it retirement of leaving my job, but now a full-time entrepreneur, brand new father to Alani, who's 10 months old, and excited to be here and provide value to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that y'all grew up together. But I know before we started recording, Anthony, you mentioned that you guys probably had like polar opposite experiences with money growing up. And so I'd love to start off our conversation with your individual money stories. And I'll let you start, Anthony. Tell us like what your experience was like with money growing up and what are some of the biggest traumas or whatever the word you want to use. What are those things that really stuck with you that you found you've had to work through as an adult?
Yeah, so with me, we both lived in a building. So I don't know if you guys are from the city, whoever's listening to this, from the projects. And the projects is exactly what you hear about on TV, you listen to it in the radio, things like that. So we both grew up in the projects of New York City. And my biggest thing was growing up, in order to get what I wanted, I needed to get a job. So I even worked as early as 10 years old, 12 years old, packing bags at the local grocery store. And it was no fault of my parents. Like, listen, I had two younger brothers. You know, my mom was working. My dad passed when I was a little bit earlier in my life. And she's like, listen, you want things, you got to work for it. So I picked up a job at a local grocery store. And my first inclination of money was I had to work there for like 2 weeks, and I saved enough money to buy a video game. Back then, video games were fairly inexpensive. But that was my first experience. And I said, in order to get what I want, I have to work. And from there, I've been working my entire life from 10, 12 packing bags, which is extremely illegal.
I was about to say, I'm like, I feel like there's something wrong with that situation.
Yeah, but it was in my neighborhood, and we were just packing bags. Somebody just give you like a little change in your jar. It wasn't anything where I'm making tens of thousands of dollars.
You were working 40 hours.
Yeah, it was like a little bit after school, a little bit on Saturday, just packing bags, helping old ladies to the car with their groceries, which was also very dangerous growing up too.
Yeah, there was nothing great about that situation other than the fact that you were making a couple extra dollars.
Yeah, so that was my experience with money growing up. So I had to work, and I was working from an early age.
Okay, how about you, Jhanilka?
And so for me, it was a little different. I'm an only child. My mother is a single mother. However, she's a teacher. So she's been a teacher now for 28 years. So she was paid good enough. So I don't feel like we ever had those conversations around, you need to work to make this money. It was more about like focus on school. So I would say my first real job came sophomore year of college. So I did do some summer things once in a while, but nothing consistently when I was in high school. And so that's when I guess money started to come up, but I never felt like I needed for more. So if I wanted something, my mother, would be able to buy it. Like my dad was in my life, but we just didn't live together. So there's certain things I could still get from my parents. So I never, people say, well, you never wanted your own pocket money. I'm like, no, I never did. I had what I had, and that was enough. So it was definitely different, which he lived on the fourth floor and I lived on the sixth floor. And it's funny just how different our lives were living in the same exact building.
Yeah, it's incredible just like the individual experiences that we can have as kids and how those tend to shape how we show up in the world when it comes to money. Now, y'all mentioned that you paid off $114,000, a little more than that of debt. Explain to me how we got there.
But before, if you
Not
don't
so
mind,
easy.
before we even get there, because what I'm about to say is going to shape that part of the conversation too. So you mentioned just how money can shape us growing up. So I had a big fear of not having money. And even to this day,
I
as
was
this
say you have, not have.
have, I said have, I said have, had, also have it to this day. So that's a big fear of mine of not having money. Even as of this recording right now, I'm always thinking about what if we don't have money, because I always work for it. So when I stop going to my job, it's like, all right, I'm working for myself full time, but it's like, what if we don't have enough money? So that even carries on to our debt payoff story. So we got married in 2016, and that was May of 2016. And that December, we were doing our first Christmas where we're like, all right, we're getting everybody gifts, and we get everybody gifts. It was a great time. And January came around, and all those gifts were on credit cards. So January comes around, you pay off the last month's credit card bill, and we had to dive into our savings, which we had plenty of. But to pay off that credit card, we had to dive into our savings. And that started a family conversation.
Mm-hmm. And then, I had the conversation of wanting to save and travel more within that same year of 2017. And he was like, well, I don't think that we can do both. I think we probably need to focus on one. And that really changed our family trajectory, because that's when he started listening to podcasts and different things of saying, like, people are doing other things. People are paying off their debt. We can do the same thing. I was not on board. I just was like, well, what's the rush? I mean, I am a therapist. So after 10 years, my debt would be paid off. There's no reason to rush this. We're paying our bills fine. But then I finally kind of came around and we kicked it off maybe February, March of 2017 of paying off our debt.
And even to that note with the debt payoff, I don't think they extended it where you had to work a couple more years. And then even so, I think 80% of people
they still have the plan.
80% of people got declined.
Yeah.
That actually applied for loan forgiveness
and it depends on what job you're at too.
Yeah, the public student loan forgiveness program has been notorious for just being like a scam of scams. I feel like now 2022 is when people actually started to see some traction with that, but it's also like, do you want to sit there and tolerate a job that's probably on the lower paying end and without this guarantee that like you're actually ever going to reach that finish line that so many people tried and did not get to? So you got to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that situation, right?
And that's exactly what happened, because that was the conversation I had, literally what you just said. 2000 and was it 18, 19 for you? Would have been 10 years, 18.
Oh no, I would have still been in it right now. My 10 years wouldn't have been up yet.
Oh, because you switched jobs.
Yeah, no.
You see what happened? So there's so many.
I just graduated grad school 2012. So
2022.
Yeah, it would just have been maybe last year.
So 2018 was the first, I think, graduating class of 2008 that had the 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that was the 80% that actually got declined. So 2022, we probably would have been declined as well, trying to pay off this debt. So that was when we started having those serious financial conversations when she finally came around.
Yeah. So of that $114,000, what was it comprised of as far as like the types of debt?
So 68,000 of that was my master's program. So what is that? More than half, or right at the half mark was my master's program. Then we bought a new car when we moved down to Dallas, an Infiniti. That was about 30,000, I want to say. And then he had student loans from undergrad at about 28,000, and the rest were credit cards, which I don't even think credit cards were over 6,000. I can't remember exactly, but so the bulk of it was student loans.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks can relate to that. And, there's this kind of idea where you're just going to have to live with this. You don't need to pay it off, right? Especially if you've taken out loans in the past 10 years, they're probably like 3-4%. And a lot of people would argue that, what's the point? I'm just going to die with these loans. So, how did y'all not fall victim to that mindset? Because I think a lot of people just have normalized the idea that we'll be in debt for the rest of our lives. And that's just what it is.
And that's what happened to us, too. We were getting a bunch of especially when we paid it off. We got everyone who's a finance expert saying, well, if you would have took that 114,000 and invested in index funds by the age of 60, 65, you'd be millionaires. Well, we became millionaires at 35. So it was like, yes, we could have invested that, which would have been fantastic, but we needed to know how to manage our own money. We didn't know that we could invest in index funds and buy 65. It would be great. But we were like, all right, if we manage our own money, manage our own pockets, let's focus on that first. So it was a lot of changing of our mindset, especially me. I had to get around the people who were doing it. I put myself in a lot of communities. Like again, listen to a lot of podcasts, getting around people who were paying off debt or even talking about money in the way that I was, and obviously bringing that back home. And
so I was going to say that when you said, like, how did we make ourselves different? Things like this, podcast, literally. Listening to stories of people at that time, not many people that looked like us in 2017, stories that we were listening to and thinking, well, if they could do it and they make way less than us, then why can't we do it? That really changed and helped us podcast, really.
Did y'all move to Texas because of the lower cost of living? Was that part of your debt payoff strategy, or was that just
Absolutely not.
It was a great add-on, honestly.
Yeah, it was. It was like, okay, good, but no.
Because when we moved to Texas, you wasn't even thinking about debt. It was just, we moved down to Texas because of my job. So I was a manager in New York. We had a team in Dallas, and I was coming down to Dallas a lot. And they offered me the role to manage a team here. And Jhanilka said no. And I said, it'd be great for us. And she said no.
Back and forth. So we got married May 2016 and then moved down here June 2016. And then started our debt payoff
the next year,
January 2017. So still as newlyweds in a new city where we knew no one. I think he had one friend out here.
That's good for you from a social life perspective, because you probably weren't spending a ton of money going out.
Right. Exactly. It made it easier, to be honest. We say that if we stayed in New York, we don't think that our life would look like this now, because we would have no reason to change. We're around family, friends, and like, I'm not missing that brunch to be at work. Like, I'm going to be there. Like, I'm not going to be doing these extra things. So, yeah.
We had a lot of extra time to focus on our family, our marriage, and then also our finances too. So that was like, all right, how can we eliminate this debt as quickly as possible? Because we wasn't doing anything else.
So let's talk about the strategies that you guys used in order to pay off this debt. First, how did you prioritize what you were going to pay off? And how did you actually fund this accelerated debt payoff journey? Was it enough to just do it with your 9-to-5 jobs, or did you start a side hustle?
So first thing we did was, a lot of people don't even know how much debt they have. So when we sat down after we got married, we put our finances together, and it was literally $114,151. And it was like, that blew our mind. Yeah. You know you got debt laying out there. You know you got student loans. You know you got the car. But seeing it all together on paper was just like,
who does this belong to?
Like, I didn't come into marriage with that debt. Who did?
Right. That sounds like things you see on a movie.
Yeah.
I hear that number.
So we sat down, and the first thing we did was put that on a paper. We looked at it, and we really had, like you said, we had a bunch of time in Dallas. So we used to work in New York. We worked 9 to 5, and then you're commuting home for an hour, and then you're decompressing. But in Dallas, we lived next to our job. Jhanilka worked from home.
Yeah.
We lived right there near my job. So we were getting back 5, 10, 15 hours a week just from not commuting. So we picked up side jobs. We worked at the gym.
Yep. We worked at Equinox, the gym. We did that, and that was great for us. Free membership, and we enjoy working out. So that was like time spent together. So after work, we would go there. We also was watching dogs. We got a dog when we moved down here. So we did Rover, which is kind of like an Airbnb for dogs.
And we don't like dogs. So I want to make that clear. We were doing things that we like the gym, but we did not like dogs.
Yeah,
we had a dog
to socialize.
Our dog couldn't socialize, and that was the way.
I worked from home. It was good. Then we also put the car that we bought, we put it on Turo, the platform where you rent out your car. Then, like I said, I'm a mental health therapist, so I was doing private practice on the side for my 9 to 5, so that was extra income. And then we had started our cleaning business to help pay off the debt as well. So all of those things we were doing while maintaining, both of us having our 9 to 5 to pay off this debt.
Okay, I know the first thing somebody's going to ask is like, where does one find the time to do all of this extra shit?
I mean, at the time we didn't have any kids, now we do. We didn't have any kids, so that helps. And then all of the side hustles were very flexible. So that is something that we maintained and make sure that it was something that we can cut off without a problem. It really didn't interfere with social life if we needed it to. So I was getting off of work by 4 p.m., working at home. So I go to the gym 5 to 10, 3 times a week or on Saturdays. Like that didn't take up too much of our time. The dogs were coming to our house. That's nothing. The cars being picked up and taken away. The private practice I did have to go in, so that became a bit more taxing, but that's how we juggled it. And whenever it became to be like too much, we would not work those weekends or whatever the case may be. But also the people at the gym knew what we were doing. So the managers were flexible with us as well. As a part-timer, I think you had to do at least 15 to 20 hours. If we weren't able to, they would allow us 10. So they knew our goals too. So speaking and letting people know what you want to do is helpful.
Yeah, making sure those things are, making sure your side hustles are flexible. That was literally the first thing she said. We're not going to be forced to show up anywhere or do things that we we don't hate dogs, but we weren't forced to do anything. If we wanted to stop taking dogs that weekend, we just turn off the app. If like my car got paid off in a year, we turned off the app because I felt like, all right, it was too risky out there. So we were doing things that worked around our lifestyle outside our job. So I was a director. I got off of work at 4. I got home 4:20, and I'm at the gym by 5 o'clock. I get to eat a quick snack and go to the gym at 5, and she's there at 5, and we drive home together 5 to 10 o'clock. So everything that we did was extremely flexible around our regular lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that y'all found ways to even incorporate the side hustling as a couple so that you're not just like spending 18, 19 hours a day just separated and you're not even seeing each other. So
yeah, that's one thing Jhanilka made sure we prioritize that too. She's like, listen, we're going to go on this journey together, but when we need to shut it off, we need to be able to shut it off. Yeah. And that's a lot of, we did that a lot. And that was very important especially in that first year of marriage. It's like, all right, we need to focus on each other, but we knew we had a goal at hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about the cleaning business. So tell me the origin story of that. What made you want to start that? And then we'll dive into kind of the logistics of what that looks like.
So again, back to podcasting. If your audience doesn't know by now, listen to podcasts. And that's also why we started a podcast too, because we're like, we got to get our stories out here and other people's stories too. So I was listening to a podcast and I came across a story about a kid who was in college trying to pay off debt or trying to make extra money. He started a cleaning business. This is back in 2017. And we knew we needed to do things that were extremely flexible for our life. So I hit this kid up. We're on Facebook Messenger, and I'm just pinging him questions about what he's doing. And he said that he wasn't cleaning houses. And I said, okay, got it. You started cleaning business, and you're not cleaning houses. How are you doing this? So I'm getting bits and pieces from Facebook, and I'm like, all right. I took half the story that I got from him. I made up my own half, and I brought it to Jhanilka like, yo, listen, we can do this. And again, she was like, absolutely not.
Because I'm like, well, first of all, the cleaning business was our first business ever. I think getting into paying off debt opened our eyes to other possibilities out there and stocks and all that type of stuff. So it was our first business ever. We never even discussed opening a business, having a business, entrepreneurship, anything like this. I'm like, why would we do that? Like, what's the reason for that? What's the point? We're already paying off our debt. Like, let's just take it easy. We have all these other side hustles. We don't need nothing else. That was kind of the conversation and the thought process behind it.
I realized with our ideas, we got a cleaning business, we got a virtual assistant business, we own rental properties, and we do some other things. Like, I have to bring the good, the bad, the ugly to her before we even start the conversation. So when I came back around, even with the Dallas move, I had to come back to her and say, all right, here's the pros of us moving, here's the cons, here's what we could do, here's what we can't do. We could go back to New York and visit family as often as you want. So when I brought the idea back around, it had more details around, all right, we're not going to clean. We're going to find people who help us clean. And here's how we're going to structure it. Here's what it could look like. And she eventually ended up coming around after all of that.
So that's how it started. He heard on a podcast and brought it 2 times, and then we finally executed it.
Got it. Okay. So the way that I'm envisioning this in my brain is almost like you guys are brokers. You find people who need their houses or whatever, something cleaned. You find a service provider and you are the bridge. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. We are the Uber of cleaning business. So that's how we say exactly. So you use the app and you find, we connect the contractors with the clients, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you can't
the middleman.
So think about all their service-based platforms right now. So you got the Uber, the Lyft, the Airbnb, even with Amazon, none of these companies own what the infrastructure that you're talking about. So Uber doesn't have any taxis. Airbnb doesn't have any hotels. They are literally just a platform that matches people who need the service and people are willing to provide the service. And that's how we run our cleaning business.
Mhm.
All right, so talk me through how you first started it, how you decided first how to package your offer, how you're going to market yourself, and where you're going to find people as clients.
The main thing to remember about this is that this is our first business. So this is nothing to what we would do today, 5 years later. We are just like winging it, to be honest. People say, oh, did you have a business plan? No. We barely got the LLC. We had somebody else, somebody do the LLC for us, like that type of stuff. So we did market research as well, like look at other cleaning businesses in the area. How much should we charge? What are the services that are people doing? Like what's a deep clean? What's a standard clean? So we have to kind of learn some of that information. Once we did that, we were ready to price ourselves, find someone to do the job. That was the biggest thing for us, finding people to do the job because we knew that we didn't want to do it. So before we were marketing, we had to have somebody in place to do that. And so then we were marketing on places like, I don't know if you know what Thumbtack is, but similar to like Handy and Angie's List and all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were marketing on there where people are looking for specifically cleaning businesses. Eventually, we went on to market on Google and Yelp and all these places, but Thumbtack is where we started. And that's how we start to begin to build our clientele, get reoccurring clients, and continue to hire contractors. Because that's the biggest thing in our business, finding good people to work for you. I think that's the biggest thing in any business.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the continuous thing that we always say that we do and suggest our students do as well.
And your listeners may be like, why the hell the cleaning business? Again, we want to iterate. We don't have any background on cleaning. We rarely even clean our own home. Even growing up, we weren't the ones that was
growing up, I was scrubbing walls with my mother. Let's be clear.
But we weren't getting paid to clean. There was no professional cleaning experience about us.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason that we felt the cleaning business work was there wasn't a lot of capital to put into it. So you hear a lot of people talk about, all right, you want to start businesses, you need to get funding, $10,000, $5,000. Like we started a business with like $1,000. So remember, we were paying off debt. So it was like, we can't afford to go put $10,000, $20,000 on a credit card to start a business or get a line of whatever it is.
We wasn't using credit cards.
We weren't even using credit cards, so we couldn't get a loan out. We were like, all right, our goal is to pay off debt, so we can't go create more debt. So our goal was to start creating income as quickly as possible, but also as cheap as possible. So it was a very low-cost startup, and worst case scenario was if it failed, it was only $1,000 that we put in. 5 years later and $1 million later, it's like, we happy we kept it going.
Yeah. That's the power of online entrepreneurship too. It's like such a low barrier to entry when it comes to money. So let's talk about that first $1,000. What did you spend it on?
Yeah. So first $1,000 was a lawyer to draft up a contract, which now we know wasn't necessary. But Jhanilka was like, listen, we're going to do this. We got to do this 110% legit. Your basic branding. So your website, what else? Your LLC, what else?
Or did you mean the $1,000 that we received after?
No, the first investment that you made into starting.
Investment. Okay.
Yeah, so branding, your website, your logo. Now we know, all right, you could have created the logo on Canva for free. You could have got a theme online for like $50. This is the stuff we talk about now, but back then we had to pay for the logo, the lawyer, the website, what else? Hiring platform, and
generating
leads. So those are the biggest expenses marketing when we first started.
Okay. And from the moment that you, let's say, turned on the business to making your first dollar, what was that timeline like?
A day. Yeah, we went live on Thanksgiving Day on 2017, and then Black Friday we had our first client.
We started that whole process that I just mentioned in October. So from October to November, the things you don't have to worry about is you got to worry about your colors, you got to worry about your logo, your website doesn't have to be perfect. So we spent 4 weeks trying to perfect everything. And we said, listen, we just got to turn this website on. So that fourth week, we turned the website on and got our client the next day.
Wow, that's incredible. I think your story definitely speaks to the power of just intentional action and just like not getting bogged down in a lot of the nonsense that new entrepreneurs do, like obsessing about the damn logo or the website. It's just like, yo, let's start making some money. You can refine this later. And I think that's such an important thing to remind yourself of if you're new on this journey.
Yeah, We say that now, but when we first started, we were definitely focused.
We were focused on the wrong
We
thing.
put the name out to the family and we had them vote.
What do you think about this? What do you think about that? No one cares, I swear. We really had our family voting, and I don't think that color is going to go. And now we're like, none of these people got businesses. Why were we even asking them?
But no one even calls you and say, I love your logo. I'm going to spend all my money with you.
Not for this business. There may be some that matter, but not for this business.
So you're spending a bunch of time on things that don't matter, where you could just turn it on and start making money. So that was one thing I would definitely recommend to people. Just get started.
Yeah. All right. So give us some perspective on what you guys have been able to accomplish with this business since starting it. Like, what has the income looked like year over year? How have you optimized your operations versus how you first started? Give us kind of a behind the scenes view of what it's been like to scale.
Yeah. So the hardest part about scaling was finding good people. Our first story was we hired a contractor. And like Jhanilka said, we're working with mom and pop shops who don't have any online presence. They're like, all right, you guys are good at marketing. I just have a cleaning business. How can we work together? How can you get me more clients? So we're finding people like that. But our first contractor bailed on us. She was like, I don't want to do this. I'm out. She got to argue with her husband or something like that. And us being new entrepreneurs, I'm like, I'm at work. And she bailed. And she's like, I'm crying on the side of the road because my husband just left me. It had nothing to do with us. It was just them, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave my job. I'm gonna go pick her up, make sure she's okay.
I'm like, what?
And Jhanilka was like, what the hell are you doing? What are you gonna do?
That's her business.
Like, we're not a marriage consulting business. This is a cleaning business.
Yeah.
So that was our first headache in the business. We ended up once we were done with our jobs, we ended up going to do it. But out of 4,000 jobs, we've only done three of them, and that was only because I wanted to try it out and see how it went. But that's not something we do. So
absolutely did not.
Jhanilka didn't want to do it. So when we first handled that versus the way we handle something like that now is completely different.
And, I know you asked about just year over year. During the pandemic, things definitely kind of plateaued. However, the cleaning business was seen as a necessity during that time because nobody knew what was happening, but they wanted something done. So we still were able to maintain the business. And now we've grown it to the point where we have virtual assistants. We've grown to the point where we have an operations manager so that we meet with the operations manager once a week for an hour. We're not as involved, but let's be very clear. We kind of just got the operations manager in place February of last year because our daughter was going to be born or due date of March 1st. So we were like, okay, we must do this. All the time we kept saying we would, but we're like, no, we must hand this over to someone. And we trained her and put her in place, and it's been going really well. And last year we had our biggest year at about $650,000 in revenue.
What was it like the first year?
The first year was like 75,000, wow. Which is amazing because our students are doing 200,000 and 100,000. They're like crushing it, but it was about 75,000 that first year. And 8 months into it, we were ready to quit.
Really? Okay, so let's talk about that because, to be able to have that level of financial success with a new business, I mean, that's an incredible feat. But I can imagine that you guys did not have, like you mentioned, the operations in place that you have now. So you were doing all this stuff and also balancing the 9 to 5. Did that have anything to do with the burnout you were experiencing?
I think that and comparing ourselves as well, because we were in a group where we were around people that started around the same time as us, and we're like, oh my God, this person is doing $10,000 a month and all this type of stuff. Why aren't we doing that? What are we doing wrong? So that and the comparison. But then when we speak to some of them, they're like, oh no, I'm not doing well. Like I'm burning out. I'm ending up in the hospital. I'm putting too much time into it, right? So we always talk about comparing yourself. You really never know what's going on. But that, and then at one point we started to feel like, is it even worth it, right? Because it felt like negative after negative thing, a negative review, or someone not showing up. So that was the feeling we were having. And he was like, well, I think we should do it for at least a year. And then if it really is, not working out, we can just move on from it.
And that's a mindset we take with anything we start now. It's like, all right, how much time are you willing to put into it long term? I know everyone wants a quick fix, especially I feel the same way all the time too. We compare ourselves to other people and we see the entrepreneurs, I got my first 10K month. But are you willing to at least go a year? Now we say 2 to 3 years to do anything to figure out if you really want to do it, because soon as you quit, that month that we were going to quit, we went down to like 4,000 in revenue. Our next month we did 8 to 10,000 like immediately after. So we would have quit at that 8th month. We would have never got to the 10th month.
And it could have been the season. Like it was like you said, we're a year into this, so we really don't even know.
You don't even know your business that
right.
well yet.
You don't even know your business yet. And it was important for us. The other thing was that we weren't losing money too.
So when we hit that $8,000 to $10,000 a month, and it was like, all right, we finally felt some traction, we were able to focus more on the growth of the business. Like, all right, we don't have to do what other people are doing. You survive that first year, it probably won't get much worse than that, because you, like Jhanilka said, you see the seasonality of the business. You're like, all right, we didn't know that. What happens in the summer during the cleaning business? People are traveling. They are not home. They don't need their homes cleaned. But we didn't know that until we went through the first year. So us coming back around and realizing that why we had our lowest month was because of the seasonality of the business. So now we know what to do, what to focus on during those slow months so that we can continue to grow the business.
Right. I mean, my head goes immediately to start targeting short-term rentals, the Airbnb business.
We didn't know that. No, that's exactly what you should do. Those are some things that can help you go. But that first year, you're just looking at the revenue the month after month, and it was like, what do we do? We're getting actually. It was a bunch of headaches. So remember, we're at our 9 to 5, so clients are calling us. We didn't have a virtual assistant team. We didn't have people answering the phones. But we felt like nobody could do it as good as us as new entrepreneurs. And these calls are coming to our phone, text messages coming to our phone. So we really focus on. You mentioned like how do we grow year after year. So after that first year we made it, we're like, all right, let's get a team in place just to answer the phones. Like it doesn't cost much. You could pay $5 to $10 an hour to someone just to pick up the phones, and all they're doing is taking messages until you learn what you need to do as the next step. So those are just some things we experienced that first year where we said, all right, we recovered from the slow months. Now let's focus on the growth of the business.
That grind season is what makes or breaks entrepreneurs, right? It's that beginning experimentation phase where you're literally just figuring out what works. And once you do, you can start to double down on that. But you, like you mentioned, Anthony, you have to give yourself enough time to actually figure that stuff out before quitting. Okay, so what's been the hardest part of this journey, right? Because I feel like for a lot of folks, they're sold this idea that entrepreneurship is super sexy. It's always fun. It's magical. You get to live your best life and accomplish all your dreams. But we all know it's not always like that. So, whether it's from an actual like incident that happened with the business or like mindset stuff that has started to come up for you as you've started to embody this, but both of you can share what's been kind of the hardest thing that you've had to navigate through during this process.
You saw me roll my eyes when you said if entrepreneurship is sexy, because I don't know who's lying to everybody out there.
I think everybody's lying to everybody.
I think that with entrepreneurship, the difference, well, it depends on your job. But like your 9 to 5, usually when it's done, it's done. It stays there. Entrepreneurship, it does not end. And especially with at least the space that we're in, content is so big and everything is content. And it's like, when does it end? When do I stop recording? When do I stop talking about the business? When do I stop? So having those hard stops was important for us in our relationship as well. So I think that that's something to navigate when it comes to entrepreneurship, because you can just be in it. You know how they say you quit your 40-hour job to work 80 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people really understand. Yeah, maybe I'm not sitting at my desk for 8 hours straight, but there's still a lot of work that goes into it for me to show up. You're thinking I'm just on IG Live, but I had to make sure I put my baby down 15 minutes before to make sure that I'm here. All these things, camera's perfect, all these things that you aren't seeing. So that's what I would say is kind of the difficulty of knowing like when to cut it off and separate that.
And then going back to that financial trauma or money trauma or just thoughts, negative thoughts, is like, again, I'm always thinking about money. Money is finite. It is eventually going to run out. It's not infinite, but getting in this entrepreneurship space, I'm always thinking about the next thing that's going to create income. How can I make sure my family's good? I left my job. It's like, am I crazy? Like we had pretty high incomes, or I was making about 125 at my 9 to 5. So when I left my job, it's like, are you freaking nuts to focus on a cleaning business that you don't know will be here, and to focus on these other things? And it's always a constant up and down seesaw. Right now, people are talking about recessions, or people are spending less money. Are they going to focus on less cleaning services? And how do you pivot in your business? So those are some of the challenges, and realizing that there's going to be seesaw months. You're 9 to 5, you may stay at $5K a month or $10K or whatever it is a month, but entrepreneurship, I don't know if people are making, but just being mindful that in entrepreneurship, you might have a good 50K month, and the next month you may have three. You can't live every month as if you're making 50,000, 40, or even 10. You have to live on a base average for the last 3 to 6 months, whatever that is. And also sometimes you may have to live below your means, which I know a lot of people aren't accustomed to, especially in this day or age. So
according to the stats on Black Friday, we spent a lot. So I don't know what recession is happening because people
yeah,
are
I mean,
spending.
everybody's just putting it on credit, I feel like at this point. They're just like, "You know what? We'll figure this out later."
Yeah, probably.
And that's unfortunate, but I think, one of the things that I love about what y'all are doing, and I always encourage entrepreneurs to do this, because I see a lot of folks replicating the whole idea of just having the single income source through their business. And y'all are not doing that. You have your cleaning business. Now you are teaching this through a digital program. I'm sure you have different ways of making money beyond that. So tell us a little bit about how you've diversified your income as entrepreneurs as time has gone on.
I think with just being like talking about our story has helped us to diversify because originally we were talking about our debt payoff story on social media, primarily Instagram. But at that time, I still didn't want to share because I'm like, I don't want people in my business. So I don't really want to share what's happened. That could be a Brooklyn mindset. I don't know. I don't want to share what was really happening or anything like that. But then we started to share it and we started to talk about the cleaning business, got tons of questions. When you speak to people, they're always like, test the product to see if people even want it. And that's something that we did. We went on IG Live and told ourselves, if we're going to say that we have a product, we're going to say we have a course coming out. We didn't do the course yet. If we get 10 people to purchase at a landing page, we'll do the course. And that's exactly what we did. We tested the product in that moment on Instagram Live. And they were like, okay, people are interested in this. People want to know about this. And as we started to put it out there more, they were like, okay, they want more. They want a community. Let's make sure that we provide that. And we continue to think about ways to provide more to them. Maybe it's at the base level, maybe it's at a higher level, and we continue to do that.
But another thing is just figuring out, like she said, what your audience wants. But you have to become, especially in this digital age, I feel like you should be able to teach someone something that you know, but you have to have a baseline understanding of it. So we didn't just get into the cleaning business after a year or take somebody else's course. We were in the business for 3.5 years before we even thought about telling anyone how the hell to do this. You see somebody take a course or they do something once and they're like, all right, I'm going to teach everybody how to do it. No, we were doing this for 3.5 years before we even said we're going to start talking about what we're doing on a more deeper level. But I do feel like there's some experience or some knowledge or information that you could help someone just by telling your story. So I have friends who work out. I'm like, all right, I need to know how you work out so consistently. I need to know what your eating habits are. I need to know if you're a barber, how do people cut during the pandemic? I was telling my barber, I don't want to go on YouTube. Can't you show me how to do this online where I can cut my own hair? How much can I pay you so I don't have to go on YouTube with a mirror and learn how to cut my own hair?
50 people page to see which one is cutting it.
My barber knows how to cut my hair, so I need to be able to come to you online to do this. So I feel like if you have information that can help someone achieve a goal, that would be something that I would start with, especially in this digital age, helping people get to that end result.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's just you got to get creative with the real assets that you have, and knowledge is a huge asset that I think a lot of people undervalue. And I think part of that is just a symptom of, corporate America and this per dollar hour price that you put on people's skills. I feel like it makes people feel very insignificant about what it is that they know. So it just requires a huge mindset shift of really understanding, like, if someone was to learn this from me, like, how would this impact not just the day, the month that they learn it, but like the rest of their lives, and really putting a price tag on that reflects that value.
Yeah, one of my friends, his goal, he was doing surveys. And I said, yo, if you could teach somebody how to get money in surveys, then you could create income from that. So the first month he was like, I think I'm not doing it. And he ended up creating a platform that helped people get into surveys and make money from surveys. And I think by month 2, his survey group had did like 15, 20,000, and he was able to make an extra 10,000 outside of his 9 to 5 just by putting the information out there. He was, I don't think anybody wants to learn how to do surveys. I'm like, you're making money from home, eating cakes or trying a soda
or game or something.
I did a survey that paid me $200 to play a video game, and they let me keep the video game. I was like, this is something that people would love to know about. So that skill, just helping somebody get to that end result, whatever you're doing, I feel like it's intangible at times.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so I love closing out the episodes with some mindset tips because we all know, as people of color, we are really paving the path to what wealth looks like, what financial freedom looks like. It's a lot to navigate, and I know, if you're like me, you've had these feelings of imposter syndrome and doubt and oh my god, like I am the backup plan, this can't fail, and some of that can be really hard to navigate. So, what are your tips for dealing with the mindset stuff that comes up when you are paving these uncharted paths?
So for me, it would be, I think, saying it out loud. Like I'll tell Janoka, and part of it could be her being a therapist, but the other day I said, I'm just feeling stressed right now. I just feel like there's a lot of pressure on me as a husband to create income for the family consistently. And she said, all right, take a break, go for a walk. And believe it or not, just me getting out my own head, she's like, put the phone down, don't check emails, don't check any of the businesses, just go for a walk. And I'm walking and I pick up my phone, I'm on IG, I go to a DM, and she texts me, was like, get out Instagram.
Because he responded. I'm like, you're on a break. What are you doing?
So sometimes it just takes you getting out your own head by getting away from what stresses you out. So I would think that's something that I'm still working on even to this day, is getting out my own head and just getting away for a little bit. So I put on my calendar every day, take a 2 o'clock walk, because I used to do this at my job, and it's like, why don't I do it now that I work for myself? So 2 o'clock on my calendar every single day, I go for a walk around the block, get some fresh air, get away from the monotonous task of just being in front of my computer all day. And that's something I would recommend for anyone. If you got a 9 to 5, if you work jobs, if you're an entrepreneur, just getting away for a little bit.
Two things I think it's kind of like just do it and writing it down. I'm big on writing it down. Like you can't see it here, but we have two whiteboards where we write it down or we put it on our calendar. Once it's written down, it's real. Like it's happening. And so that's a big thing for me and kind of just doing it. I'm also speaking from a space of being in this and for the past 5 years. When we first started, I'm all like, oh no, this has to happen, this has to happen. And now I'm like, just put it out there because when we started and we were putting it out there, it was working, right? Now we're deeper in the business and we're thinking it has to be perfect or I need to make sure it can't look like this. And I'm like, it's fine, it's okay. So just doing it and writing it down, I would say, has been tremendous for us to kind of get things done and get out of our head as well.
And another thing with mindset is getting around people who are in the space that you are in, so that you know that you're not alone. You're not the only one who has had a bad month. You're not the only one who's had a bad quarter. You're not the only one where you got into an argument with your wife. So it doesn't have to be about entrepreneurship. It's getting around like-minded people who may be experiencing what you're experiencing. So those accountability groups or any other entrepreneurship or family mentorship group, whatever you can find where people are doing similar things, I say get around it.
Absolutely. And get yourself a therapist. I always tell entrepreneurs, like, please, that needs to be part of your team because you will be confronting every single limiting belief you've ever had in your life as an entrepreneur. And you will be so outside of your comfort zone that it's not easy. So, the power of community, the power of just understanding that like you are not alone, I think is super powerful. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, I know folks are going to want to find out so much more about you, the podcast, the course, your actual like cleaning business. Like so tell us all the things. Where can we find you?
So we refer most of you to Hartzog Hustle podcast. That's you can find us on all streaming platforms. Also for YouTube and Instagram will be the Hartrimony, which is the HARTRIMONY. And those are the places where you can find us.
Google, if you type in the word Hartzog, we should be at least the
Number
only
one.
Black couple up there, top 5 or something. You type in the word Hartzog, our last name, we should be up there somewhere.
I love it. And we'll make sure to include all of your links in the episode show notes so that folks can go ahead and follow you and find out more about the incredible things that you're doing. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your incredibly inspiring story. And you know what I love most about what y'all are doing? You didn't just create this little empire for you to go and just like enjoy the fruits of your labor. You've actually decided to get out there and share the wealth of knowledge that you have acquired so that other people can replicate and maybe even exceed your level of success. And I think that's when you know that you're doing things for the right reasons as an entrepreneur, because it's not just about you, it's about the legacy and that lasting impact that you're going to create by sharing all of what you've picked up along your way. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
No problem.
the more impact you have on others, the more income you'll have yourself. So there you go.
Big facts. Thank you guys for being here.
No
All right,
problem.
thank you.